Frontera estate is destroyed and the Baron and Baroness are dead. Lloyd was devastated and cries as he was late, but this time he has a second chance and has reached the town in time. All the creatures were attacking the estate, and one of the creatures enters the Baron's mansion. The maid was terrified as the creature tries to assault her, but she is saved by the Baroness as she killed the creature using a wooden chair. But more of them started to come in through the windows. The Baroness holds her hand and rushed to find an escape, but as she saw through the window, she is terrified as there was a large number of creatures gathered over the estate. The Baron rushed and checked if the Baroness was all right. He tells her to get out of the mansion and to join Sir Byron and the other soldiers. As he opens the mansion's main entrance, he was terrified to see a large number of creatures waiting for them. Sir Byron rushed around the estate and asked the men to assemble at the court's residence. Everybody was struggling with the creatures. Sir Byron thinks to go and help the Baron but remembers his words. He told him that if the estate ever to be in danger, he should help the townsmen before him. He draws out his sword and started to help the townspeople. The orcs were also having a tough time dealing with the creatures, but still, they were ready to take the creature down. Everybody was having a hard time and had given up, but out of nowhere, a huge noise was heard. Everyone, all the creatures were attracted by the noise. Lloyd and Javier were using the pot lid to make huge noise to attract the creature. The creatures are attracted to it and start to reach out for them. They all gathered together and started to follow both of them. The Baron and the Baroness knew that the echoing sound must be Lloyd. Lloyd and Javier are being chased by the creatures. Lloyd tells Javier that they have to go all along the estate's perimeter to drive all the creatures out. Lloyd asks Javier to bang the lid harder, but Javier hits it too hard and he complains about it. Javier was visibly enjoying hitting the lid. Lloyd tells him that they have to cover the Lacona estate next. Javier is shocked as he was planning to help the neighbors even in such a critical state. Lloyd's approval rating by Javier increased by +3 points. Lloyd tells him that he can't lose the water bill. The Viscounty of Lacona was also under the invasion of the creatures. The Viscount was terrified by the attack of the creatures. He hears the echoing of the lead. Out of nowhere, both Javier and Lloyd make a grand entry into the mansion. The Viscount was scared as Lloyd tells him that there should be no delay in the water bills and move forward to the next destination. Javier asks him if his plan was to go through the building and concentrate the swarm even more. Lloyd tells him that he has no such plan but to have some fun with Lacona, which scares Javier as he thought there was something wrong with him. Lloyd yells at the creatures and says that Captain Frontera was coming through. Javier tells him to save his strength as his yelling will not be of any use. Lloyd tells him that he is shouting so the people will come to know that Lloyd saved them, and he could get more money using this, which scares Javier even more. Lloyd orders him to now move to the next destination, Marteai's wetlands. As they move forward, the creatures came from the opposite direction. Javier tells him to hold the lid at an angle above his head and then fall back. Javier uses his ore sword and gets rid of the creatures. The lid worked as a windshield for Lloyd as they move forward through the swarm. Javier slices through them and both of them were successful to get ahead of them. As they were able to gather all the creatures in a single spot, they needed to just go a little further. But their horses were all exhausted, and Lloyd hops on Javier and tells him to run as it was the only option they had. Javier leaps over the horse and starts to run away from the swarm, carrying Lloyd on his back, but soon the creatures catch up with them. Lloyd calls out for Bangul and Hamon, and both Hamon and Bangul were ready to launch an attack on the swarm. Javier and Lloyd hid in the canal and Bangul attacked the swarm using the volcanic blast. Lloyd calls out for Hamon, and he launches water cannon and gets rid of the creatures, some of them. Now, for round 3, Lloyd and Javier both used their skills and got rid of all of them. Both of them were exhausted, and Javier tells him that they took care of most of them. However, there were still at least a few thousand of them left alive. Lloyd tells him to chill as Lloyd has planned the cleanup. Padong gathered all the orcs and also the mages, and the royal cavalry reached to clean up the rest of the creatures. Javier asks him about what was rest of the monster domino will be. Lloyd tells him that this is never going to end with just wave. The cleanup party was doing work very efficiently just as Lloyd thought. The royal cavalry, the mages, and the orcs, everyone were able to get rid of the bugs. The maid thanks the orc who helped her in the crisis by giving him a flower. The Baron and Baroness rush to see Lloyd, hugs him tight, and asks him if he was hurt. Lloyd knew that the second wave will come soon, and he has to do a lot of work. Lloyd gets a new title. Its perk is that he can send all the bug-type creatures into a state of fear just by looking at them, and once they are in this state they will lose their ability to fight. Lloyd was standing in the training ground and is approached by the commander of the White Cavalry, Valardi Blanc. We come to know that Lloyd has asked Blanc to meet him. Lloyd thanks him for his crucial role to wipe off the monsters. Blanc tells him to stop falsely praising him as they were just for the clean-up purpose. Lloyd tells him that if he was not there to help them it would have taken weeks for them to clean up all this mess. Blanc tells him that at first, he was angry for a mere engineer to be given command over esteemed White Cavalry. However, he was a very good strategist, but he still doesn't like him. Also, he sent away the wizards and asked the cavalry to stay. Blanc asks him what he really wants from them. Lloyd knew that Blanc was special just as he read in the novel. In the novel, he fought against Javier who followed the evil queen, and he was very loyal till the end. He had uncompromising loyalty, but Lloyd has his own plans to get his loyalty. Lloyd asks him for a duel, and if he wins, they have to be part of the Estates Engineer Corps, and if Blanc won he was happy to go back and serve the queen. Blanc thinks for a while and tells him that he can't fight Lloyd as he was just an ordinary civilian. Lloyd tells him that he was in charge of the White Cavalry, and this was an order from him. Blanc was furious. Blanc asks him if he had a weapon on him, to which Lloyd responds by raising his shovel. Blanc knew that Lloyd had punished the traitor of the estate with the same shovel, and he was ready, but he will keep his sword sheathed. Lloyd is now ready to go, but he knew that his chance of winning against him was zero. But as always he had a different and powerful weapon. Blanc tells him that if he flinched due to any of his attacks he will accept his loss. Lloyd accepts it, and was really excited as the fish took the bait. Lloyd uses his triple core mana blast due to which Blanc flinches as an instinct, and Blanc has no choice but to dodge the attack. His mana blast travels through the town and is projected on the tip of the mountain. Due to this Blanc was terrified and accepts his defeat. Lloyd was on the ground with little to no energy left, but still, he had his villain face as he knew that he has won. After that night, 500 men of the White Cavalry have been transformed into Frontera Barony's Engineer Corps. Lloyd and Javier were standing on the top of the hill. Javier asks him if his plan will work, and Lloyd tells him that this plan was tried and tested by the orcs, and is true, as he has to just wait and watch. We see all the workers carving a huge monster's face on the mountain. After some days, a huge earthquake was witnessed by everyone in the barony. All the civilians were scared, but this time everybody knew that their Lord Lloyd will protect them all. The White Cavalry was ready to face off with the beasts of the second wave. It was a huge herd of mastodons. Commander Blanc asks for evidence from Lloyd, but Lloyd uses his skills and finally gets him to believe that his words were true. And now everybody was getting ready for the battle. They strategized to stop the beasts from getting to the town and then surround them from all sides. The commander thought that there have to be at least 20 casualties for this large-scale mission, and one of the soldiers tells him that he will propose to his sweetheart after the war is over. Blanc knew that instead of an engagement ring for his lover, his glorious lance may be the only thing he leaves behind for her, and believed that it was the fate of the cavalry. The commander calls the soldiers and were all set to attack, but they were interrupted by Sir Byron. Blanc asks him why was he not having his armor on him. He tells him that Lloyd told him that he will not need armor for this mission. Blanc thinks that Lloyd has lost his senses, but Byron tells him that he already has gotten used to this type of odd stuff. But today he was here to decipher Lloyd's messages and tells him that Master Lloyd was standing on the top of the hill, and will soon send the signal. After some time Lloyd signals them, Byron decodes it, and tells the soldiers of the White Cavalry to move swiftly. Blanc was agitated by his performance. Lloyd tells them if they keep arguing, he will tattle on him to the Majesty. Blanc has no choice but to accept this and was still confused as he didn't know what was Lloyd thinking. The mastodons came rushing. Lloyd signals the soldiers and starts phase 1 of the plan. As the mastodons rushed they were struck with fear by the huge image of their natural enemy, Megalania. And then phase 2, Lloyd tells the White Cavalry to move forward and asks them to make as much noise as they could make, and make a huge dirt cloud around them. They started to bang their lances. Blanc was confused as he didn't know what Lloyd was even thinking to order them to do this. The herd changed their paths as they thought there are more of their natural enemies there. And they all started to move in the same direction, Blanc realizes that the beasts are moving in the direction where the dirt is for the relief image. Now the phase 3. All the beasts fall into the pit, and then Lloyd signals Hammond to pour in some water. Lloyd drops the flags, gives a flashy pose, and declares their victory. All the mastodons are swept away due to the water, and the canal further connects to the river. As a result, all the mastodons are calmed down. Blanc is confused as they won without even a fight. Lloyd tells him that they will have enough nutrition for them here, so there is no reason for them to return. Everyone in the engineering corps was really happy. Also, Oleg is now going to propose to his sweetheart. Javier asks him if these monsters will ever end. Lloyd tells him that they will end at some point, but they will still have to deal with plenty of more waves, and tells him that if this continued their estate will be at a loss. Javier tells him to spill the beans, as he knew that Lloyd already should have come up with a plan that requires the least amount of work. Blanc tells him that they too are going to help them in this mission. Lloyd asks him if he was not going to return to the capital. Blanc tells him that he has sent a letter to the Majesty asking for her permission to stay, as today he witnessed what a real victory was. Also, he realized what an incompetent leader he had been this whole time. Blanc kneels in front of Lloyd to show respect. He requests him to stay and learn from his wisdom, and all the white cavalry soldiers join in with him. Lloyd tells him that he was actually going to plan something to make them stay, but he has to not worry about it now. Everybody was at the table, trying to figure out the solution to their problem. The Baron asks Lloyd if he remembered. When he rejected to build a waterway from Lake Capua, Lloyd remembers it, and says that there is a legendary beast at Lake Capua, King Stroma, that lies asleep in its depth. But they still continue the construction, as the disturbance from the construction was not enough to wake him. Lloyd tells him that's right and that this time they will wake him. The Baron instantly rejects the plan, same as the Baroness, but Blanc votes yes, and so does Javier. Javier tells Baron that they will not win this argument anyway. Lloyd tells everyone that the majority wins and now they can proceed with the construction. After some days, everybody is ready for work. Javier asks him how are they supposed to wake and control King Stroma. Lloyd tells him that it sounded impossible, but he has done some research about the beast. One reference mentioned a giant beast as big as a mountain, but surprisingly there was not a single mention of it attacking humans. Also, he built the lake by creating the dam by himself. Also, they say that if his habitat is damaged, he will let out a shriek before starting the repairs. And that's why they are going to destroy a part of the lake. As the beast repairs, it will scare the heck out of the monsters coming over the eastern mountains. Javier was disturbed by this, as they are going to torment the beast, which even Satan will not mess with. Javier asks him what if the monster starts to attack them. Lloyd tells him that it was obvious, as Javier will have to defeat the monster, and then he has to shriek day and night. They are at Lake Capua. Lloyd uses the simulation skill and searches all the possibilities. Javier tells Blanc that it seemed a little odd, but there was no need for them to worry. Blanc was impressed by this and admires Lloyd for his skills. In the depth of Lake Capua, there lies a huge monster, who has sensed Lloyd and the party and thinks if they try to disturb his slumber, he will kill them all. Back in the village, Sir Byron was having fun with the mastodon's baby and is shocked as Lloyd sees him out of his character. He quickly gets up and asks Lloyd if these little mastodons were separated from their mother, and he asks his permission to raise them. Lloyd tells him that they will become more ferocious as they grow, but Byron still insisted to raise them as they were adorable. Lloyd has no choice but to give him permission. Lloyd thinks that if this would go well, it can turn out to be a great asset for barony. Lloyd needs more allies for this mission, but the orcs wanted to save their own tribe, so they return back. Lloyd asks Greg to gather 5 men and ride with the tribe if trouble strikes. Let him know right away. Blanc tells him that all the preparations are complete when the long-awaited operation goes into action. Lloyd motivates all the soldiers by delivering a great speech, and they all cheered in the name of the White Cavalry, and everybody strikes an over-fancy pose. Javier was truly pitted by the White Cavalry, as they were acting completely opposite. Lloyd has modified the terrain such that the lake banks would crack without causing a flood. Javier signals everybody that he was ready, and Lloyd asks everyone if they are ready and signals Javier to fire. Javier uses his mana blast and was able to destroy the riverbank, and everybody drops to the ground to take cover. And now that King Stroma was finally awakened, Lloyd and Javier and everyone are scared. They witness how big the beast actually was. And the King Stroma finally surfaces, but instead of fearing it, everyone found it to be adorable. But strangely, Lloyd was able to understand what the beast was saying. It was just like Podong and the other creatures, and thinks that there was a possibility that the beast was a summon. The beast turns and tells Lloyd that it was able to smell them, also. Identifies that they were trying to damage the dam to make him do something, and thought that he will quietly fix the dam and go back to sleep. King Stroma tells them he is now going to wipe them out and end their tricks for good. Lloyd knew that he was totally off in reading the situation. Blanc asks him what should they do next, and Lloyd was lying down with a cold face. The beast starts to go berserk and started to attack them, due to which they are submerged in water. Javier leaps at the monster and attacks it with a mana blast. But it was not enough, as he just slaps the attack and is easily deflected. Javier had no chance, so he draws the aura sword and once again leaps to attack the beast. Lloyd yells at Javier and tells him that he had a plan. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.